When I say microphone, very likely this image would come to most people's mind. If I say guitar combo amplifier, this is probably what many of us would imagine. The Shure SM58 microphone became a standard on which many soundmen and singers would feel confident to rely upon for quality and trouble-free operation. Similarly, the Blackface Fender Twin Reverb is widely popular for being a reliable, high-end, powerful amplifier that suits the needs of many jazz, country, blues and rock guitar players. I usually care so much about gigging with my own amplifiers, but if a promoter said, "You don't have to bring your amps, we have a Fender Blackface Twin Reverb in our own resident backline," I most likely will choose to save my back for the gig and rely upon the Twin Reverb. What brought to success the Blackface Fender Twin is a transparent, articulated tone, cutting easily through any mix, even without tone controls in flat position. It takes pedals very well and offers creamy tube warmth without breaking up too early, which means superb clarity even at high volumes. In fact, it has more headroom and volume to offer than most guitarists will ever know what to do with. Powered by 4 6L6 tubes, delivering an output of 85 watts, the Blackface Fender Twin Reverb is renowned for its exceptional circuitry and build quality, with responsive controls. Its open back cabinet provides a broad and even spread of sound, perfect for covering the entire audience of a club from the stage. On the old Twin Reverbs, I really love the tilt-back legs or built-in kickstand to angle the amplifier back towards your ears and have a loud monitoring while avoiding to deafen the audience in the first rows. I'm also fond of the gorgeous tube-driven reverb and tremolo effects. We already discussed the ages of the Fender amplifiers in BTR number 17. So we all should know that the popular and coveted Blackface or Black panels were produced from 1963 to 1967-1968, depending on the different models. In mid-1967, the Fender Twin Reverb underwent a cosmetic restyling and was given the Silverface or silver panel look that would become a trademark of the following decade. A few months after the new cosmetics were introduced, some changes were also made under the hood, so the earlier Blackface models became highly sought after and valuable, as they all featured the popular and appreciated original circuit. The Blackface look is therefore a guarantee that the amplifier features the good old circuit referred to as AB763. The early Fender Silverface amplifiers, made between mid-1967 and mid-1969, had an aluminum trim or thin frame surrounding the speaker grille cloth edges. They also had a slightly different grille cloth texture, with addition of pleasant subtle vertical blue stripes. These amplifiers are usually nicknamed drip edge models, and their transitional features deserve some investigation. Fender recently even made a ratio model named 68 Custom Twin Reverb, even though it's not properly an exact reproduction. The early drip edge twin reverbs, made until May 1968, were still inside identical to the more collectible and prized Blackface models, and featured the same exact AB763 circuit. Some of them can be recognized by four weird vertical black lines on the panel. After May 1968, some generally unwelcome changes were introduced in the circuit, which was then designated by the AC568 identification code. Recently, I was lucky enough to come across this vintage original Fender Twin Reverb Silverface drip edge. Always kept in a recording studio and still in flawless, clean original conditions. How do I know if it features the prized original Blackface circuit or the later AC568 version? The tube chart inside the chassis is labeled with the AB763 circuit identification code, but unfortunately that is not a reliable source of information. Fender didn't bother to update the code when they introduced the circuit changes, and just kept using the old labels until they ran out. It's time for an emergency call to my expert guitar tech friend Enrico Tozzini. He can pull out the chassis and detect what version this circuit is. Here is the verdict. This amplifier presents some alterations to the older Pre-CBS circuit and has already the AC568 circuit, introduced in the 17th week of 1968. This is consistent with the date codes pointing to early 1969. Earlier cloth-covered wire and newer plastic insulation are both present in the chassis. The Blackface amplifiers featured the valued blue molded caps in use until 1968. This amplifier has already the so-called chocolate drop caps, still quite appreciated. The two-button foot switch is still of the Blackface era. As for the circuit, nothing is lost. The AC568 only introduced slight modifications, and reverting it back to the AB763 specs is a fairly easy task. In particular, Fender CBS added huge gathered resistors on the power tubes and a few capacitors in the attempt to reduce distortion and get quieter and more stable operation. These additions were never popular among players, who basically considered them tune suckers. Also later drip-edge twins had a revisited bias adjustment circuit. Enrico advised to clean up the additions of the AC568 circuit and removed the related components. Fortunately, the wiring and component layout of this chassis is still very orderly and tidy, as expected in a Blackface amplifier, while it tends to be way more scruffy in later Silverface models from the 70s. 1968 is the only full year of production for the drip edge models. From mid to late 1969, the Fender Silverface amplifiers lose their drip edge, which also indicates further changes. Master volume control, push-pull boost circuit, laminated pine boards cabinet to replace former solid pine boards. These are all features that through the years put a distance from the original Blackface concept. In conclusion, today the drip edge amplifiers represent excellent value for the money. They're a bargain for players who cannot pay the surplus value for a collectible vintage original black-faced twin, while appreciate an amplifier capturing every nuance of their playing with warmth and clarity. At this point, you might have noticed that a very important aspect still needs to be covered. What speakers are inside the cabinet of this amplifier? We are dealing in depth with this topic in the next BTR episode, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be prompted as soon as it's out.